Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. Big night last night for the Utah Mammoth. They crushed Toronto 6-1. They're flying now. 7 points out of 8 possible on this homestand. They have now gone 5-1-1 and picked up 11 out of 14 points possible in the month of January, getting themselves right back into the playoff race. The numbers look good in the standings, but other teams have games in hand. The Mammoth have played more games, so they got to keep it rolling the rest of this homestand. But that was a great win. Dylan Gunther with a massive game. For more on this game, let's get to the best of the postgame show.
DJ and PK, the Utah Mammoth moved into that first wildcard spot in the Western Conference on Tuesday night with a 6-1 victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs to start their homestand. 3-0-1 and snap Toronto's 8-0-2 stretch. They were the second hottest team in the NHL entering Tuesday night's action, and the Mammoth got things started early once again. Mike Carcone, 3:22 into the first, got the Mammoth on the board.
This way for Nate Schmidt, left circle, one-timer, they score! Michael Carcone finds pay dirt, and it's 1-0.
It stayed 1-0 through the end of the first period. Utah had to kill a couple penalties against a red-hot Toronto power play that was over 30% in the last 4 games. But in the second period, Utah got a big save from Karel Vejmelka to keep this game 1-0.
Open man up the ice. It's Tavares on a break. He's in the clear. He shoots. Vejmelka says no. Karel Vejmelka, the great eraser.
And then Dylan Gunther took over with a pair of goals in 1 minute and 18 seconds. First, it was his team leading 22nd.
As he pedals up the left flank, he shoots and scores! Dylan Gunther fires a frozen row, almost too good to believe. Nobody knew it was in.
And then he capped off the second goal, which was the fastest consecutive goals by a Utah player in team history. 2 goals, 1 minute and 18 seconds apart. It was 3-0 Mammoth, and they were off.
So far this evening, and it's 2-0. Gunther on the attack again. He scores again! Dylan Gunther goes back-to-back, and he's trigger-happy tonight.
And the exclamation point in a 3-goal second period came off of the stick of J.J. Peterka, who for the Mammoth buried his 16th.
Peterka shoots, and he scores! Boone had the screen, Peterka the shot, and it's 4-0. Another one of the new line combos finds the magic touch for head coach Andre Tierney.
Leafs got one back, but Utah quickly answered. Jack McBain with 2 assists in the first 2 periods for the Mammoth. Got his second goal in 2 nights. 5-1 from here.
Stay on the right side of the puck. Right now in the offensive zone. Gunther looking back door. They score again. Gunther to McBain, the old roommate Costco connection. And it's 5-1.
And Daniil Boot capped off the scoring, becoming the 6th Utah player with multiple points in the contest. He gets his 3rd to put the Mammoth up by 5.
Sergachev diagonally, Peterka towards the net, tapped on goal. Boot scores! Oh, these boots are made for walking. Break out the Nancy Sinatra.
So Utah leads for the final 56 minutes and 38 seconds. Third time in this home game, they score a goal in the first period and never look back. So after getting a point in a disappointing contest on Sunday against the Blue Jackets, Mammoth get a 5-goal victory against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now 5-0 on nationally televised games as they move into that first wildcard spot in the Western Conference. First time they've ever beaten Toronto. So on this homestand, first-time victories against Ottawa and the Maple Leafs. Let us hear what head coach Andre Tierney thought after the contest.
Hi, everyone. Oshie, nice to see you, bud. Obviously, a really good game. We like the pace of our game, the speed we have offensively and defensively. I think we attacked every shift with a lot of speed through the neutral zone and a lot of pace, a lot of pressure on their D. And I think we knew that we're in the back-to-back to play a big game yesterday. And the theme for us was to bring that kind of after the game against Columbus, I talked to you about the mindset. And I said, it's not about focus, it's not about execution. the mindset we had in that game, the way we tried to play the game tonight, that's looked like not just the result. Obviously, we'll take the result, but it's more than that.
McBain line obviously had a good night. Lots of shots, lots of points. Besides that, what did they do so well to play as such a strong unit?
There's a lot. I think they play hard and fast. They were really fast in everything they did. They never slowed down. When there were no space, they were putting puck behind and they were going to work. So they were coming really fast. It's three good skater, and I think he clicked. For sometimes it's tough to explain why. It's just happened. I think Gunnar and Karks had success last year when they played together. Same thing, Gunnar and Boehner. They had success when they played together last year, and Boehner and Karks had success together. So that was the rationale behind it. And we thought probably, or we were hoping, between Booter and JJ and Aids will click as well. So it did. So it is what it is.
We've used the word relentless a lot to describe this team at times. The word on the broadcast today was killer instinct. Did you see that, and what tangibly did you see out of that?
Yeah, I agree. I think we have 5 shots in the third. I think we kept the pace defensively. Obviously, they were playing fearless in the sense they were trying more plays and stuff like that. So they had a little bit more possession, but still we played the right way. We put pucks behind. We were on them. They had no easy possession, so we were on them a lot.
So Utah took advantage of a Toronto team that was coming in on the second half of a back-to-back. They went to overtime on Monday night with Colorado, and this was a sandwich game between Denver and Vegas, who they'll play on Thursday night against their leading scorer from last year and their leading scorer from 5 of the last 9 seasons in Mitch Marner. So they caught the Leafs on a back-to-back, unbeaten in 10 straight with the backup goalie, but never let them off the hook. Let's hear from Dylan Guenther after his latest 2-goal performance.
Awesome. A bunch of points. What was working so well with you guys, not only with the puck, but also without the puck?
I think just simplicity. Boehner's super predictable, and I think that me and Karks could kind of just read off him that way.
Karks was intercepting all the time, getting the puck up ice. What did you see off his performance specifically?
Yeah, I mean, he's super fast. Like, I think whenever there's pucks in the space, he seems to win the race every time. So it's super nice playing with a guy with that kind of speed.
Both of your line mates today are from Toronto. Did it mean anything extra to them to get a couple against them?
I mean, probably not, but maybe if you ask Boehner that. I think it's just a great bounce-back game versus what happened last game.
Since Carcone re-signed, he's been very reliable. How has he kind of carried himself since coming back?
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good player. I think he's had success at every level. He's produced at every level, and he's worked. He's worked for everything. So he's a great guy to play with, and super fast, like I said. So he's a really big part of our team.
It's a group effort to hold a team like that to just 20 shots. What did you see out of the defensive details from your team?
I thought that we just played hard from the get-go and then didn't let up. They had a pretty good push in the third for the first 5 or 10 minutes, and I mean that's going to happen. But I thought we responded well.
Can you describe the energy or the mentality between periods when you guys are trying to maintain that calm energy to weather through a game when you have a lead?
Yeah, I think it's just stay on them. I think don't sit back. That's the biggest thing. I mean, even when you're trying to stay collective, I mean, you still have to be hungry and hard on pucks and everything.
You guys have won a lot of games here recently. Just curious, how do you continue to build on that and make sure that you continue to win?
Yeah, it's been a good stretch. I think we've talked about this stretch for a little bit and have looked forward to getting a little bit of time at home. So it's nice to be getting points, and we play a really good team next game, so just make sure that we're ready to go.
After a win like tonight, how deep is the belief that you guys can get the job done and get into the playoffs?
I think that's the big picture. I think we're fighting. Every game's a fight, so I think if we play like that every game, then we'll have a really good chance.
It's the 20th game-winning goal of Guenther's career against his 18th team that he's gotten a game-winning goal against. So the Mammoth will be back at it on Thursday against Dallas. We'll be on the AM only on Thursday night on AM 1280, the KSL Sports Zone, with the Jazz in action as well. Of course, we'll be talking all about it on Mammoth Daily. In today's episode, we'll get Mike's Morning After, hear his thoughts on the game. I'll give you more of mine. Barrett Hayton joins us in the Odd Man Rush, and forward Kevin Rooney, just called up from the American Hockey League, will be with us in the third period on Apple, Spotify, the Utah Mammoth YouTube page, Mammoth Plus, and wherever you get your podcast. DJ and PK, have a good Wednesday, and we'll be back at the Delta Center coming up on Thursday.
There is the best of the post-game show. Now, yesterday morning, Mike Fulta joined us, radio voice of the Utah Mammoth, to talk about several things happening with the club and obviously looking ahead to the Winter Classic next year, and some of the players who have really led the charge this year and stepped it up over what we saw last year. Here is Mike Fulta with PK and I.
This homestand, we pointed to it for weeks and months. It's exactly like we did last year, right? And it's sort of funny in that they find themselves in the same situation. You're around the team. Now, you don't want to make too big of a deal because you don't want to play tense. You want to be free and loose and all that stuff. How much conversation is that we got to make headway right now? And is it almost becoming an obstacle rather than, hey, let's just go out and play the game and be loose and that type of thing?
Yeah, that's a great point, PK, because I think last year at home, we saw this team struggle. We saw this team struggle trying to make a new impression on this Utah fan base. And we even heard from the guys and head coach Andre Tourney saying, yeah, we were gripping the stick a little bit too tight. I think we've kind of put those days behind us this year. Home record's been better this season. And you start this homestand. You won the first couple games of the homestand too. So that helps. You kind of get the monkey off the back a little bit. That eases some pressure. But you're talking about last year. Last year this team went 3-4. So they had a losing record during our January 7-game homestand a year ago. And that kind of put us behind the 8 ball, where this year you get off to a good start. You pick up 5 out of the possible 6 points to start the homestand. And it's going to get a little tougher. The competition gets stiffer tonight with Toronto coming into town. But I think getting those first few out of the way and kind of learning from last year have helped this group.
How much does it matter to add in a game where you need a lot of people, right? You got 4 lines, you got half dozen defensemen over here. How much does it matter to add Peterka and to get the numbers that he's putting in? Because there are stretches of his team where goals are hard to come by, and he's a guy who can score in bunches.
Oh, that's why he was brought in, right? Yeah. And we saw this team last year that had a lot of good analytics. They did a lot of the good things offensively. They got to the hard areas of the ice. They got the puck to the middle. They created a lot of scoring chances, but they just couldn't finish. Well, JJ is kind of the opposite of that, where you might not notice him all night and then, boom, all of a sudden he scores 2 goals. Like I like to say that JJ's strength is the hardest thing to do in the NHL, and that's score goals. He's got elite caliber speed. He has an elite shot as well. He plays in space really well. He plays off the rush extremely well. And so, we've seen a couple of electrifying moments at the Delta Center where, he's got just a little bit of daylight and then, boom, he's off and running on a breakaway, scores a big goal. And it changes the dynamic of a game when you have a game breaker like that. It's kind of like in basketball, a guy who can just go and get his own shot. Like, you don't need to operate any fancy offense or run any sets. You just have a guy who can go and get a bucket, and JJ Peterka is a bucket getter, and that's something that this team has needed in stretches this year. And the goal scoring hasn't been off the charts this year. I think this team likes where it is offensively, but they might need a few against a pretty high-powered Toronto team tonight. They're one of the top scoring teams in the league.
Has Clayton Keller at the NHL level turned into Braden Smith at the college basketball level?
Nice.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Clayton Keller would have to be the best assist man in Western Conference history for him to be Braden Smith.
Now, he's the Purdue point guard, for those who don't know, and you went to Purdue.
Well, I mean, how could you not know? He's
Some
only
may
been
not.
the Big Ten all-time assist leader. And you know the best part of that was that Braden Smith passed two Michigan State Spartans, Mateen Cleaves and Cassius Winston, to get to that mark. And guess where our TV play-by-play guy Matt McConnell went to school?
Michigan State.
Lansing. That's right.
Yeah.
Or East Lansing Community College. Same thing. But
nice.
So just to have Braden Smith pass a couple of those guys was a little cherry on top for me. But if you want to get to Keller, I mean, he has kind of been that. And I like the analogy to the Purdue point guard because Keller's been dishing him out recently. He's got 3 straight games with multiple assists. Now, a hockey assist is a little harder to get than a basketball assist. But he has been unbelievable when it comes to setting up his teammates recently. And you know, we've talked, guys, about like getting to the hard areas. I used that phrase earlier. Or establishing the interior of the ice, the inside of the ice. Braden Keller is not a big guy. We list him at like 6 foot, 185 or somewhere in that. I think we list him at 5'10". That's pretty close to true. It's kind of like me saying I'm 5'10" on a dating app. It's like, it's 5'9" with boots on, right? He's not the biggest guy, but you watch him play, and he's kind of shouldering guys or being physical with defensemen, establishing position, and then setting his teammates up. And he's embracing that physicality as he gets to the hard-to-reach areas of the ice to set up his teammates and dangerous scoring chances. So he's been unreal recently. And guys, ever since we saw him get appointed to Team USA, when he was announced on the Team USA Olympic roster, his production has been about 50% higher than what it was before. So last year when he didn't make Team USA for the Four Nations tournament, we saw his production increase, maybe a bit of revenge, trying to get revenge or prove the doubters wrong. This year, he gets announced to Team USA, and his numbers have increased, maybe a bit of a confidence boost.
Sure.
The Winter Classic is coming to Utah. And PK and I grew up in Southern California. PK lived in Southern California, where the Rose Bowl, people just talk about, and part of the magic is the sun setting in the middle of the second half, which they messed with this year because they changed the kickoff time. The Winter Classic is coming. They're going to play outdoors at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Can you use all your influence and lobby the league so we get the sun setting, somewhere late second period, early third period? Can't set on the San Gables, as PK likes to say, but setting on Mount Olympus over there. It could be quality TV, but you got to talk people into this sometimes. I'm not sure they know.
Well, not to be a geography nerd, but wouldn't the sun set opposite Mount Olympus?
Yeah, but it glows off it when it does.
It's a reflection.
Yes. It's a reflection off the snow-capped peak.
Well, typically in these outdoor games, they do start during the day when it's light, or when it's lighter. And I think that's just because they want on TV to be able to see the backdrop. Right. Before it gets dark. So typically they do start in the afternoon. I will put in I'll put in my 2 cents for that. We'll see what our good friend Mr. Gary Bettman, the league commissioner, has to say. But I do think we are in line to get a sunset. I'm more worried about the snow.
Yeah,
guys. Like
right.
we got to have some snow on those mountains. When we made the announcement, we missed the snow by like a couple days. And we're looking out at the hills above Rice-Eccles, which are gorgeous, but they're not nearly as breathtaking without a little powder on top. Kind of looks like some anthills. But when you do the wide shot and when you see Mount Olympus in the background, like we'll definitely have snow there and all that stuff.
Yeah, you just have to turn it a little right.
We're trying to figure out like the guy's intro, because like every Winter Classic, the players have some fun intro into the stadium. Down in Miami, they all dressed up as like Miami Vice with the white suits and the pink shirts, riding Lamborghinis into the facility. So,
like how DJ comes into the studio. Yeah.
It's just a day that ends in Y for me, big guy.
That's right. That's right. I thought some jackwagon cut me off in a Lambo earlier.
I do think also, Mike, if you want a little more success on those dating apps, long walks in the park and sunsets on the beach. Guaranteed winner every time.
That works, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. Throw in a latte or two and you're good to go.
That's like Service Academy football, just 3 yards in a cloud of dust right there. Old Faithful.
Yeah, it works. Yeah. Who doesn't like long walks in the park and sunsets on the beach?
There it is. So we've covered Purdue point guards, dating apps, and Utah sunset geography. It's been a rock solid Utah Mammoth segment with you, Mike Folta.
Nothing but the best. Nothing but the best.
And Mike, when you put that on the app and it works and you score, I want an assist like Clayton Keller and Braden Smith.
That would be a primary helper. That's like a.
I'll take the secondary assist. I made the pass that led to the pass. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, guys.
All right. There was Mike Folta yesterday on the show before the big win last night as the Mammoth wins 6-1 over Toronto. We're going to take a break. When we come back, BYU basketball coach Kevin Young. The Cougars have a really interesting game midweek and a big game on the weekend. We will get to that. Kevin Young next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Join Hans and Scotty G at RGS Exteriors tomorrow from noon to 3 at 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. BYU getting ready for a week full of Texas schools, TCU and Texas Tech this week. Here is Kevin Young, BYU basketball coach, with the media.
Kevin, after reviewing the film, anything stand out? Anything? What are your kind of takeaways from the Utah game?
Just proud of the guys, like I said, after the game for finding a way to get a win. You know, a lot of missed free throws, to your point, Jay, after the game when we spoke. So you make some of those, obviously a much wider margin of victory. But just proud of the way that they were able to find a way to win. Yeah, I mean, we saw some stuff schematically, but, you know, like I said, in that game, there was so much emotion into it. Just finding a way to win was good. I mean, we came in today and, you know, really just looked at some of the situational stuff that we could draw from. And you got to turn the page quickly. You got a good TCU coming in. So my mind went – and they play so differently, so my mind went more to TCU, to be honest with you.
Then I just wanted to ask you quickly about adding Ahmed Beto, as you guys call him. What kind of – when you were looking to add a guy, what stood out about him? Why did you focus on getting him? What skills did he bring that you guys needed?
There's a lot that went into that. You know, it was a long-term play just as much as anything. You know, to get a player of his caliber and his experience, you know, and then the way it unfolded, you know, with the amount of eligibility he ended up receiving, sort of changed the course in terms of why we like him big picture. I mean, rim protection, offensive IQ, rebounding. Those are the qualities that we like the most. Size.
All right, we'll go with Mitch, Dana, and then Darnell.
Kevin, Richie Saunders earned Big 12 Player of the Week this week, and he was outstanding last year as a first-team All-Big 12 guy. Where have you seen Richie improve this year with this talented roster?
Just consistency. I think, you know, when you shoot it at the clip he shot it last year, it's like, okay, well, can you do that again? You know, and he's been pretty good there. I think he's driving the ball even better than he did last year. And it's like, you know, Richie's game is not a secret. He's going to do the things that he does really well. So I think it's a matter of being consistent in those things, and I think he's been doing just that for us.
And you've been big since you've been here at BYU on maybe proof of concepts. I'm curious, you know, Utah sold out a lot on AJ defensively, yet he still gets 20 and has an efficient night. How valuable is that going forward, that even when teams sell out on AJ, that he could still get his?
I mean, he just speaks to his talent. I mean, you can't, you know, and his quick decision-making, that's something we've talked about a lot. You know, I learned that when I had some great players in the NBA. If you hold the ball when the double team's coming, you're going to have a long night. But he figured out how to go quick on some of those rejects, some of the double teams. But, I mean, he's such a high IQ guy. You know, still got to the line a bunch. You know, still should have gotten to his average because he missed a couple of those free throws. But, I thought he made the right play more than he didn't. He'll learn from some of the mistakes that he made with the double teams. I mean, I think it surprised him with how many bodies they were throwing at him. And like I said after the game, they were determined to not let AJ beat him. But in a lot of ways, I think he did beat him because he made a lot of good reads. We got a lot of wide open shots because of the attention he drew.
Hey, Kevin, another big night with offensive rebounds. I think you had 16 against the Utes. You complimented the rebounding the other night against Arizona State as well. Has there been something that kind of clicked, especially on the offensive boards, that's been working lately?
Just guys going more, honestly. I mean, it's not really a thing that is that scheme heavy. It's just kind of a want-to thing. Richie's, 8 of them were the direct result of his ability to just outwork the other person and want it more than them. But I think, in all of basketball, rebounding is one of the biggest metrics that impact winning, and especially in the Big 12 and in college basketball in general. I mean, rebounding is such a huge part of the game, and it's got to be something that we do on a nightly basis on both ends of the floor.
And then in the NBA, you see a lot of these big three combos that, have won championships. You don't see a lot of big threes in college where 3 guys are all averaging around 20 points a game. Have you ever, how impactful is this to have 3 guys that any given night could lead the team in scoring?
I think you saw it unfold the other night. They were determined to take AJ away, and then Rob essentially walked the game down for us, along with Richie hitting some big free throws. So I think it puts a lot of stress on the other defense. You can't, you kind of have to pick your poison, but at the same time, and the thing I love about our guys is they understand that they need each other, and so they look for each other. They know where each other's spots are, and I think that's an area that we've really grown in. So it's a huge luxury to have, 3 guys that you feel like you can call their number and they're going to get something done.
Kevin, as you guys settle into the Big 12 schedule, a couple of games a week, what parts of the game plan do you make as most critical for your players to focus on?
Depends on the team and depends on what their strength is. Some games you feel like you got to tilt it a little bit more towards your offensive preparation. Some games you got to tilt it a little bit more for the defensive side. So it really just depends on the personality of that team, what they're good at, what the metrics say that they're good at. But when the plan all comes together, obviously we're going to give the guys a plan on both sides of the ball. But the pendulum swings a little bit based on kind of what we deem is what's most important based on our research.
Is that more on the players to get that done, or the coaching staff, or basically a combination of both to get that done?
The coaches. Yeah, the coaches. I mean, our coaches do a great job of studying other teams. Akash Sebastian, our analytics director, does a great job of giving us the necessary, numbers that we need to look at what teams are good at. And that's where, when you combine the numbers with the eye test, you feel like you're able to cover a lot of ground. We watch a ton of film and we try to really deliver a pretty clean and clear game plan to the players, but it starts with the coaches and all the work that goes into doing it. And I'm not sure if people realize how time consuming that can be, but our coaches do a great job with it.
All right, we'll go Mitch, Sean, and then Jay, and then Dana, you'll have the last question.
Yeah, Kevin, just wanted to ask, coming out of that Utah game, how's just Kaba feeling? And I bring that up because he had a go of it with, the UConn game and then illness and then just a slight ankle, just how Kaba's feeling coming out of that game.
Yeah, he feels good. He feels good. He's had a few setbacks throughout the year, but just got done practicing, had a good practice. I think his motor when it's running high is when he's at his best. I thought in Kansas State game he was tremendous. I think that was the game he had 16 rebounds. I think it was. And so just when he just gotta push through this little deal he had, which he has, and now hopefully we get him back full strength and ready to get back to that level of that high energy Kaba that we all love.
Yeah, Coach, you guys did a really nice job last week of not looking past one opponent for a big game on the weekend in that rivalry game. This week kind of has sort of a similar cadence or a similar level where there's a really big game on Saturday. with a midweek game against a team that has been maybe one of the bigger surprises of the Big 12 playing TCU. Just what stands out about TCU and do they have kind of your full attention, I guess, with, a top 15 showdown on the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're a good look. I mean, they almost beat Michigan. They've played, what they did at Kansas was impressive. I've watched actually a lot of their games. Coach Dixon's an experienced coach. I think Iowa State and Houston get a lot of credit in our league for being tough-minded teams defensively. I think they have a lot of the same characteristics. And that's why they're in a lot of the ball games that they're in. And so our guys have to be ready for that. And I didn't even know we were playing Texas Tech, honestly. I seriously, I just get very locked in on what's in front of us.
All right, go ahead, Jay, and then we'll finish with Dana.
Yeah, Kevin, speaking of TCU, obviously they have a former Cougar, Tanner Toolson, was there before you. Then went to UVU, obviously at TCU now. When he went back in the portal, did you guys have much interest in him? And what do you see from his game? And do you know the Toolson family at all?
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. And Adam Stewart's also on their team, whose parents are my neighbors. So there's a lot of Utah ties to TCU. I'm familiar with Tanner. He's a tough young man. He plays really gritty. I know the Toolsons. I know Ryan Toolson. I don't know how they're all related, but I know the family. I talked to Tanner just since being here and stuff. Great young man, great family. He's been a part of some of the big wins that they've had. So it'll be fun to compete against him. Wish him the best.
Hey, Kevin, any question in your mind that the Big 12 is by far the best conference in the country? And how does the grind week in and week out? How do you help prepare your team not to get worn down by this grind you're about to go into or already in?
No, there's no doubt that it's the best league. I mean, I think there's, 4 in the top 10? Or someone just told me we dropped to 11, which I still don't get. I mean, I really don't understand how the polls work, truly. I'm not trying to be funny. We have one loss by 2 points against the number 3 team in the country in their backyard, and we were down 2 starters. So I don't understand how we drop in the polls, but that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is our league's really hard. Every night is a dogfight. The coaching is tremendous. The talent, I think, this year is even better than it was last year across the board. These jobs that we all have are extremely difficult, especially in this day and age with how much it takes to put a roster together. Then you got to get everybody on the same page. So it's a real credit, all the coaches in our league. I feel a privilege to be a part of it. I know our guys, relish every game we get a chance to go out and play in this league because there's so much, notoriety. Like the other day, I had ESPN on before our game, and it was like every game was a Big 12 game, So there's a lot of eyes on, what this league does. I think Brett Yormark is a stud. I think he's a tremendous commissioner, along with Brian Thornton. The leadership at the top is really solid, and it's like I said, it's a privilege.
There's BYU basketball coach Kevin Young. When we come back, we are talking football. Cam Mellor joins us. He covers the transfer portal and the NFL draft for the Pro Football Network. Get his pick for the Indiana-Miami title game. And where are the top local players going in the draft? You might be a little surprised. Cam's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, we're joined now by Cam Mellor, Chief Analytics Officer for Pro Football Sports Network. Cam, good morning.
Good morning, indeed. It feels like there's no off days this offseason. It's been fun.
Yeah. Transfer portal, the coaching carousel, there's plenty going on. Now, we look at you at Twitter and we look at you grading athletes and all of that. How much does the blood pressure, the heart rate rise when you hear Michigan is going to get Kyle Whittingham out of, not retirement, but stepping down at Utah? How big a story was that in your world? Because you can imagine what it was in ours.
Yeah, I could only imagine. Fortunately, at the flying 30,000, feet above the air national level, I get to avoid the nitty gritty. But then you realize, okay, this makes a lot of sense for him. Pseudo retirement was actually just that, pseudo retirement. And but then what does it do for Michigan? What does it do for the Big Ten? What does it do for the precedence of the fact that he may be one of the only successful old school coaches left, and now what was and has been a blue collar old school type program like Michigan. So I love the match. To me, blood pressure rises because actually I live in Columbus, but I'm not an Ohio State fan, so it makes me sort of a little bit happy when I see that Michigan might turn the corner here and compete regularly in the Big Ten against my backyard team here. But it's, to me, I love the match. I love the fit. And then it was watching where the dominoes fell, I think, where the real blood pressure rose.
Yeah, and those dominoes, the transfer portal season, it seems like I don't think there's a question, at least in my mind, that the transfer portal season has overtaken the recruiting of high schools. And so what is your transfer portal class as you grade it out, combined with some of the kids that you may bring in? But you're thinking the portal class would be immediate help, whereas the youngsters may need a year or two to get going, and who knows if they even stay. With that in mind, you have a lot of grades from conferences. I'm wondering, as these individuals move from what we would perceive as a lower level, even if it's legitimately like a Big Sky level, to a Big 12, Big 10 level, but even if it's like a group of 5, the individual, when he moves up, and they have a sterling number beside their name, whether they be an offensive lineman or whatever, how accurate is that when they move up in what we would consider a level of competition, that they would still be able to perform at the level that they were at their prior place?
Yeah, it's hard. It's every number that I produce is opponent adjusted and then scaled with a strength of schedule metric as well for the opponent. And it's not just I took pride in it. Actually, I did it where it was the strength of the opponent when they play that opponent as well. So it's not like if you're playing, I always go back to the 2023 season when Georgia beat FSU without Jordan Travis, and half their roster. So completely different look for that Georgia team beating that opponent. It didn't really matter. And so to me, I look at it though, with that, it's still going to be, no matter how many times we adjust it and do the strength of schedule, the playing against the Big Ten, specifically say offensive lineman or defensive lineman, in the rigors of an 8-game schedule, and then playing another Power 4, most likely of the non-con. To me, it's going to always be impossible because you never know how they're going to adapt to it. But what I do like to do is look at how they played when they did play up in competition. So it takes a little bit of a nitty-gritty aspect to go through it. And that's the fun part, though, for me, is figuring out where and when and how to assess those players that can do that well.
How do you assess the players who are going into an office that might be unique or cutting edge, doing things a little different? For instance, Utah obviously last year brought in the offensive coordinator from New Mexico and the quarterback and the wide receiver. And there's a lot of motion and maybe players hopping left and right, and you can improve the angle for a lineman. And there are all these kinds of little bit that, people who like us who never played offensive linemen, what do we know? But we keep hearing from people, hey, that's a big deal, and it gives them a huge edge. Morgan Scally even referenced it in his press conference when he was introduced as Utah's new head coach. How do you factor in all that, somebody who might be in a cutting-edge offense or defense?
It's difficult. I believe that's where you have to have sort of the football mind as well as an analytical mind, and that's where marrying the two. So, yeah, I played for 12 years myself, and so when you have that aspect, I didn't play offensive line. I'm never big enough. But you're able to look and see, and you pick out different aspects. So schematically, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to, because every scheme is going to be different, and even year to year it'll be different, game to game. And so schematically, analytics will always pale in comparison to probably the football eye. But if you can marry the two, and so, for instance, like a guy like Devin Dampier, we knew full well that familiarity with the system was going to match what we saw on tape and on his grade from the season prior. And so, as long as you've got some of these offensive linemen that are athletic enough to move in space, like I think that they're clearly targeting, you can sort of match the maybe not the grade specifically, but you can absolutely match the what you see or what you've come to expect with them. So it's a project I look forward to looking into this offseason, is comparing schemes, coordinators, and then how well they grade out, not just when they have them, but how well they play out with transfer portal and then also recruits.
Well, my freshman year in high school was a brand new school, and we had a lot of kids, so they had 2 teams, and they divided them by weight. If you weighed 126, you're on one team. If you weighed 125 or below, you were on the lightweight team. I weighed right at 124, and I was the starting offensive guard, so I know all about offensive linemen, man. and that was the only time I played football in high school. So, yes, you can speak for yourself there, DJ, by saying we never played offensive line. You never played tackle football. I did. And I can relate to Spencer Fano, and everybody was off the charts loving him this year. As far as his NFL career goes, where do you see him? How high do you see him going?
It's we all know how the premium, right? That the offensive tackles in the NFL, if you have these players that are getting these massive contracts, I always look at Donovan Smith when he got his $80 million or $70 million, and he was the pain spot for that Bucs offense when he was there. So to me, it's a premium, probably right behind quarterbacks in terms of the overall where you're going to overrank, basically. And so to me, that's not against Spencer Fano or even Caleb Lovo. To me, they're the top two. And so it's the pre-draft process will sort of separate them from the pack, I think. But I think they're a clear 1 and 2 in terms of where we had them now. I would not be surprised if both of them, because of how you have to sort of reach and because of the team needs with the way the draft order fell, that both of them are top 10. But to me, Fano is the clear number 1 at tackle. And if they're both not gone by pick 15 overall, I'd be very surprised.
Who would be the next player from one of our local schools off the board, regardless of school?
It's tough. It's those two, and then I think there's probably not a drop-off, so to speak. I have to assess my draft board, though, because I think that's where we are. I think we're looking down the list here. So, as I do such a thing, I honestly don't know if we get one right away from where I'm looking. I don't see a lot of the local programs on the top. And I think that's where we've come and where we've gone with the transfer portal era, unfortunately. To me, it'd be surprising to me right now, unless we have a pre-draft process rise from somebody, that we have somebody before day 3. But Lander Barton probably takes it for me. But that's, we've seen where run and chase linebackers go. But Lander Barton is probably the best next up for me.
This is more a philosophical question. As you come in contact with a lot of coaches, we saw the Kansas State coach say he retired, and he basically said, man, I would die if I would have stayed, with all the craziness that is going on. And then we see Kyle Whittingham at 66 is like, okay, bring it on. I got a new challenge here, and he's rolling with it. And we keep hearing, but at the same time, he did a podcast with Urban Meyer, I think it was this week, and he's saying, Kyle's telling Urban that this model is just, without question, unequivocally unsustainable. He's saying that the money is going up 10 to 15% per year, which is if it was stick around in 10 years, these guys would be making $10 million. Some of these kids at 20 years of age. Just given your exposure to people, what do you think is going to happen as far as when you got somebody as an elder statesman like Kyle, but yet still willing to stay in the game, telling us that it's going up 10 to 15% is not sustainable? Something's got to change. What might it be?
I don't know what will change. I think we're going to get to a point where everything that we think now that are microcosms of the NIL and portal era are going to become the new norm, and then we're going to extrapolate on them. So the group of 5, group of 6, group of 5, because we're getting, everything back in order here for the group Power 5. But the group of 5 becomes a feeder ground at this point, where it almost turns into minor league baseball. And then to me, it's going to be, we're going to have something set up for these kids to have some sort of financial guidance at those programs, because unfortunately, to me, if we keep going, then the Georgia problem that they have with their off-field and their, say it's speeding, let's face it, their driving ability, these Georgia athletes, that's going to become the norm, because these kids are going to have these fancy cars and all these fancy things. And so to me, there's going to have some sort of financial restriction or guidance for all these kids as well. But if we keep going up, then there's no way that we're not going to have a feeder ground essentially as minor league. But to me, it's just unsustainable, and I don't know where it goes, because it's headed for a disaster, in my opinion.
As you grade out all these college football players, has it been telling you who's going to win the playoff games, and do you know who's going to win the title game?
It has told me since probably it was that first Indiana-Oregon matchup that Indiana was the best team in the country. Ohio State sort of hung around, but we always had the strength of opponents that they were playing that didn't tell us to really sort of bank in on them. And we did have Miami a little higher than anybody else in the ACC, so I felt good about that, the numbers. But to me, this is Indiana's league. This is Indiana's year. This is Indiana's season, and it's got Indiana not necessarily as big as you'd anticipate, but I think that's some knee-jerk reaction to Miami playing well. I think it's Indiana by a couple scores.
Then how about Mendoza grading out as an NFL guy? Any idea?
He seems to me like one of the safer NFL or first overall picks we've had in some time. If everybody wanted to say Joe Burrow was a safe pick, there was still some sort of unknown to his game, and he sort of had some of those YOLO balls that he threw down the field that you liked because he had the incredibly talented duo at receiver. He feels like a safe, cerebral game manager who's going to maybe not necessarily sell a lot of jerseys, but he's going to win you a lot of football games in the NFL. So I think he's head and shoulders above anybody else at this point in terms of projection and then ceiling, but also safety.
Cam Mellor joining us, Chief Analytics Officer for Pro Football Sports Network. What would you tell Dante Moore? He's got college eligibility. Should he return for another year, or is the NFL, is he going to be, pick number 2 behind Mendoza and he better go?
It's tough. I thought there was a room for him to leave and go if he was number 2. I think we saw why he should come back against Indiana for a second time now. There were some throws he left on the board. There were some reads that he could make, but also I think his former even if you say go back further before he was even there, but his former teammates in how Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel seemed more pro-ready and what he learned from one more year in the system. I know he's going to have to learn a new offensive system with Will Stein gone, but I think that will behoove him in the future and for the NFL because we've gone from the NFL where the old adage was you have to allow those first overall picks or those first quarterbacks drafted in the first round 3 years to get their feet wet to now wanting them to win right away. So if you can have another year in college where you prove yourself, you can get thrust right into an NFL offense and probably play a little bit better because it'd be a lot of growing pains if he left early, in my opinion.
And I read somewhere that the number of starts in college for quarterbacks is, and it's just real important. And if you don't have enough, then you shouldn't be a high pick. And they listed the number of guys that had been like a year or maybe even a year and a half as a starter, something like that, but didn't have the 2-3 year starting history. Do you buy into that they need more experience to be able to be rated more accurately coming out of college?
I'd say as a baseline, I'd buy into it, but there's always going to be exceptions to those rules where you have someone like Caleb Williams who, didn't start his year at Oklahoma, started and won the Heisman, and then he did what he's been able to do, but it took him a year, and then the right offensive system with the Bears. And so I think for every Bo Nix and every Trey Lance that are on opposite ends of the spectrum, we've seen what happens with Trey Lance with, 3 starts, 11 starts in his career into the NFL, and then Bo Nix with the record for starts. For every one of those two on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's going to be that middle baseline. That's where I buy in. I think Bo Nix, though, recently with how fast NFL teams have to win nowadays with the pressure from their fans, you're better off going back to school for a year and being ready to go.
Puka Nacua played his high school and most of his college football here in the state of Utah, and now he's second in receiving yards in the NFL this year with over 1,700. He was a 5th-round pick. If you'd like to call your shot on anybody who might slip in the draft but you think is going to make a really good pro, now would be the time to throw that name out there. Share your genius with us.
My genius is I also go back. I was at the Combine when he was there, and he was alone at the podium. And me, with the proverbial fan base that I have in your great state, I went over to talk to him about 15 minutes while he was at the podium, and I didn't understand why he was not sought after, why he was not a higher pick, and why people did not want to be around him. And so I didn't get it. I'm really happy to see his growth going forward and how well he's played. To me right now, if I had to pick someone maybe in that vein, I would say I'm going to go to receiver. One of my favorite receivers is Eric McAllister from TCU. Big guy. Everybody wanted Quentin Johnston to be something out of TCU. I think Eric McAllister is what they wanted Quentin Johnston to be, but he's also probably the best yak threat, yards after catch threat that we've seen recently. And so give him the ball, get him in space. He's sort of that prototypical guy where you line him up at the slot and let him do his thing after the catch.
Cam, we appreciate the time and all the football knowledge. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks as always.
There's Cam Mellor. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.